So you're a cyborg, right?
Well, part of my mouth and my eyes, yeah.
Everything go.
Doorbells and sled bells and snake.
Oh, except for when
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call tonight's meeting of the Weathersfield Planning and Zoning Commission to order. And our first order of business, roll call and seating of alternates. Commissioner Homicki, please.
Commissioner Hammer,
Here.
Commissioner Lambruni,
Here.
I'm here. Commissioner Brecklin,
Here.
Commissioner Dean,
here,
Commissioner Drake, here. Commissioner Edwards, here. Commissioner Giaffrido,
Here.
Commissioner Roberts,
here,
Commissioner Roccolini,
Here.
Commissioner Laurie, Commissioner Thompson. Yes.
So it looks like we have all 9 regular members here. We only have one. Actually, let me hold that thought. For anybody who might be here, item 2.1 on our agenda, it was going to be a continued public hearing. Application 2223-25 involving 1000 Silas Deane Highway. A special permit is being sought for adaptive reuse of an industrial building for warehouse supermarket use. We started that hearing, can't remember if it was the second meeting in November or the first meeting in December, the first session, but in any event, we had initially said that hearing would continue tonight. The applicant had additional items that they wanted to address, and my understanding is they have indicated that they would not be ready for tonight's meeting, and in fact have asked that they be continued to the second meeting in January, which is on January 21st. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if anybody is here or listening and interested in that application and here for that, that will be heard on January 21st at 7 p.m. in this room. And also, is that a Wednesday meeting because of a Monday holiday? I think the 21st, just to be clear.
It is.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
Wednesday, January 21st.
Our meeting is on Wednesday that particular week because of a Monday legal holiday. So Wednesday, January 21st, we will hear 1000 Silas Deane Highway's continued hearing. Now, the next item is 3.1, public hearing 2226-25, Town of Weathersfield, Parks and Recreation Department seeking special permit for a municipal recreation facility for the construction of pickleball courts at Millwoods Park, 154 Prospect Street. So just a couple of background items that I wanted to mention. Some of you may have been here for prior hearings on this matter. The applicant withdrew the prior application and has resubmitted basically the same proposal for the same courts in the same location. The reason for them withdrawing and reapplying is that we were timing out under the state statutory deadlines that we have to complete a public hearing. It had been extended to the maximum, and we could not have gotten to this evening under the original application because it was timing out, and we wanted to be able to consider a noise consultant study that was in process at the time. So they withdrew, they reapplied, and I also wanted to note that the applicant has asked that all documents and testimony that was offered by the public and by everyone at that prior application be incorporated into this record. So to the extent that you submitted emails or any documents of any kind, we are considering those to be part of this record already before we start. We also have minutes of those meetings that track all the verbal testimony that was given by people. And again, my understanding is everything remains the same in terms of the proposal, but we do have a noise consultant who's going to be testifying tonight, and he produced a report which was posted on the Planning and Zoning website. If you do wish to speak tonight, given that we have very recently gone through the process on the other application. I just wanted to note to you, it's not necessary for you to resubmit whatever you submitted last time. It's not necessary for you to repeat necessarily those comments. We heard them, we remember them, and we will consider them. So we're hoping that the focus this evening can really be on the experts' report, but there will be an opportunity for public comment. And before we kick it off, of the regular members, are all of you intending to participate on this matter? And
Yes.
anybody recusing themselves from this? No? Okay, so we've got nine here. And I guess the other ground rules for the public hearing, if you were here last time, we'll hear, I think mostly what we're going to go into very quickly is the expert going through his analysis and his report. The commission members will have an opportunity to ask the expert questions. We will then go out to public comment, and if you have comments to make or questions that are directed towards the expert's report, we will keep track of all the expert type questions, and we will bring the expert up at the end of receiving all those questions and ask him to address everything. But we'd like you to direct them to the commission, and we will ask them to all be addressed. And I think there's one piece of new correspondence, Mr. Elder, that you
We did. I
mentioned a
could,
minute ago. Can you say who it's from and their address?
We
to start?
received communication today from Marianne Zabidio, 34 Dorland Circle, who is opposed to the pickleball court proposal for a number of reasons, including the sounds associated with pickleball, but also the states a number of just complaints about the park in general and the operation of the park, and general opposition to any construction of a facility in the park.
Okay, and is that the only piece of new
That is.
correspondence? Okay,
Aside from the sound analysis, yes.
okay, and again, I just want to reconfirm all the documents from the prior file you've made part of this file.
I did, correct. And I also want to, when you did say it's basically the same application, it is exactly the same application that's just resubmitted to restart the statutory clock for us to hold a public hearing. The exact same application.
Okay, so it's the same number of courts, same location,
Yes,
et cetera.
exactly.
And I think our next order of business at this point would be to bring up Herbert Singleton from Cross Spectrum Acoustics, unless the applicant wanted to say anything at this point, or if you had anything else for us.
No, I think that's it. Maybe just a reminder, from the prior application where we ended, there had still been some outstanding questions from both the public and the commission about sound and the level of sound that would be created, what the existing sound was of the other recreational facilities at the park, and really to try to gain an understanding of what this new facility could do in terms of increasing that noise, but holistically, what is the existing background noise, and where does this, where do the any increases in sound from the pickleball fall within the existing sounds that are emitted in the facility, and then also an understanding of what are the existing sounds that are received on nearby residential properties, and where would a new pickleball court fall within those as well. So just quickly, I just wanted to touch base. That was the scope of the sound analysis that we did. And with that, I think we could jump right into it.
Okay, and Mr. Singleton is going to use the
Yes, I'll
screens.
put
Okay.
down the screens. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, I need somebody to log in to the computer.
Oh, did it time out?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll be right there.
Hang on, it's done.
It's in the lights. I don't know if you also see
better to go to the following one. You know, this is too low.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to go up and down. Right, there it is. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Herb Singleton. I am the president and co-founder of Prospectrum Acoustics. Our firm has a headquarters in the Springfield, Massachusetts area. And as David just mentioned, we were retained by the town to assess the sound from the proposed pickleball courts at Millwoods Park, both in terms of the noise level emitted from the park in terms of compliance with the town regulations and in terms of the context of the sound in relation to other existing sounds in the park. I should mention that the actual report that's in the record that was authored by my colleague Tim Johnson out of our Boston office. I'm presenting the results just because me being in Springfield, it makes more sense for somebody closer to be here. But I did work with Tim on the report. I should be able to address anything that may come up. Before we get started, I will mention two things. One, I may slip into jargon a little bit, and if I do, and you don't understand something, assuming it's within your procedures, please feel free to ask for clarification. Similar to that, I do tend at times to talk a little fast. If I say something that you don't understand, again, please feel free to interrupt me and ask for clarification, assuming that's it's allowed within your procedures.
Sure. Thank you. And you may already be planning to get to this, but I was going to ask at the outset, could you describe a little bit about your background and experience with acoustics as well as you and your firm's experience with pickleball related analyses?
Sure. So I have about 30 years of experience in noise and vibration, including community noise studies. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where I focused on acoustics. I've worked on projects all over the country and in some foreign countries. Worked on litigation projects. I've been admitted as an expert in 6 states. And have a lot of experience in New England, including Massachusetts and Connecticut. My most recent experience in Connecticut was working with the town of Salisbury on a mediating between a project proponent and the community on a project out there. Our companies, we have, as a firm, and Tim Johnson in particular, we've worked on a number of pickleball projects in Massachusetts and in New England. We've been working for towns, working for pickleball, project people, and working for the community. So we've kind of been on all sides of it. I will mention that pickleball is fairly new. It's really, in terms of noise effects, it's really sort of been on the radar for maybe the last 5 years or so. We're trying to feel our way through it. Pickleball does have some unique characteristics to it that creates some unique responses. There's consultants and experts all over the country who are kind of putting their stamp on it. We don't have a clear consensus yet on kind of how to address it, and as we get into the analysis and I describe the report, you're going to kind of see some of that. But for this analysis, we're trying to remain within the spirit of the town ordinance and within the spirit of the context of being in the park, and trying to be fairly conservative.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with the Wethersfield town noise regulations. So we have noise limits, daytime noise limits and nighttime noise limits, where the daytime noise limit is 55 A-weighted decibels. Just for some context, everyone knows about decibels in terms of sound level, where basically 0, 10 dB is fairly quiet, 100 dB is fairly loud, something like a rock concert. 55 comes from research that the EPA did about 50 years ago on trying to determine appropriate daytime limits for citizens in the U.S., and 45 is the nighttime limit from that same study. The A in dBA, that just refers to an adjustment made to decibels to account for how humans hear sound. Human hearing, we are very attuned to the mid frequencies where our voices are. We don't hear low frequencies, and we don't hear high frequencies as well as we hear the mid, as well as we can hear the voice frequencies. The A weighting part of that accounts for that. And the A weighting is part of the reason why pickleball noise can be somewhat more annoying, and we may get into that a little bit longer. So we talk about, we have separate limits for the daytime and for the nighttime, where daytime is defined by the code as 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and nighttime is defined as 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's pretty common in the noise control community and noise control ordinances on federal, state, and local levels. The exception is that the town reg has a separate definition of daytime and nighttime for Sundays, where instead of starting the daytime at 7 a.m. on Monday through Saturday, Sunday's daytime starts at 9 a.m. So presumably that was to allow folks on Sundays to sleep in a little bit and have a little bit more of downtime where they won't be exposed to higher noise, so they can sleep in a little bit. The limits apply at property lines, not at the facades. So for a house that's set back from the property line, there's a little bit of a buffer from where the sound level, where the noise limit is applied and where the actual house is. So presumably, any noise level at the property line is going to be lower at the building facade or at the building because the building is set further back. Okay, just remember sound levels decrease with increasing distance, so as you get farther away from sound, your sound level drops. So there is a clause in the noise regulation that says that if the background noise limit L90 exceeds, if the existing background noise level L90 exceeds the town limit, then your town limit is set by an increase of 5 dB over that L90. All right, what does that mean? The L90 is the 90th percentile level, or the sound exceeded 90% of the time. What does that mean? So the way to think about the L90 background level is if you walk outside and you hear the traffic on Silas Deane Highway, you hear planes coming from Bradley. If it was the summer, you'd hear some crickets. If you just sort of ignore those sort of forward type noise sources and just concentrate on what's underneath all of that, there's sort of a background din that you hear. The L90 is that background din. It's not quite the lowest sound level, but it's pretty close to sort of the sound limit, sound level floor in an area. And what we're saying here is that our daytime sound level limit is 55 dBA, but what if the area is right next to I-91 or right next to a loud factory, where the L90, where the background level is already above 55, so the background is 60, well then everything already exceeds the limit. So this clause just says that if you're in that situation, then your limit is that L90 value plus 5 dB. Now that's a long explanation, and it turns out though that based on the existing noise measurements we did at the park, that clause does not apply to this. But we just want to make sure that we have it here so that that we're not ignoring it. We're not. It is something we considered.
Thank you.
All right. So as I kind of implied, when we started working on this project, the first thing that we did was a measurement of ambient noise at the park. Or an ambient noise measurement to represent the closest homes at the park. So we did a measurement where we put a noise monitor out for 5 days from a Thursday to Tuesday in October. The photographs, the aerial photo on the right side of the screen shows you the location of that noise monitor, and that location is essentially the property line of the home closest to the proposed pickleball court locations. And you can see the pickleball court location is represented by the light green rectangle to the east of the baseball field. The photos on the left and middle of the slide show photographs of the noise monitor deployment. The first photograph is showing a picture basically from the baseball field looking to the west, and then the second and the noise monitor is the noise monitor is represented by the little foam ball on the microphone stand. That's the microphone with its windscreen.
Could I ask a question
Yes.
related to this? You show here that there are 18 receivers. So that little yellow dot that you showed us before, is that comprise all 18 receivers?
So yeah, so this is a something that we typically do in community noise measurements. Is when we do an ambient noise measurement, we pick a representative location that represents multiple properties and locations that are all have the same noise exposure to ambient sources. So in this case, you know, there's two things here. Is one, we're picking the closest residence to the pickleball court. So obviously, if that closest residence, when we do our analysis, if we find that closest residence, the noise levels do not exceed the limit, then they won't exceed the limit. The project won't exceed the limits at other residences that are farther away because sound levels decrease with increasing distance. But all these homes are basically exposed to the same ambient noise sources. Basically, the Berlin Turnpike as a distance source and the local roadways. So we can represent the existing noise exposure by one measurement. Does that make sense? Okay. So this just gives you a feel for where we did the measurement and the ambient environment of the measurement. So this slide here shows the results, and I should mention, again, everything that I'm showing in this presentation is in the report. Some of this is going to be a little simplified and truncated just for presentation purposes, but if you want any more information about what's on here, it's in the report. So this is the results of the ambient noise measurements. So what we're seeing here, the plot to the right side of the screen, again, we measured noise levels for 5 days. The plot is representing a number of different noise metrics. I'm going to go back real quick and make a mention that our noise limits, 55 in daytime and 45 nighttime. Fortunately, those limits are not particularly clear in terms of the exact metrics of the noise that we should be comparing to those limits. We can actually measure sound levels in a number of different ways, which we're going to be describing a little bit later on. And in how we measure those sounds or how we quantify those sounds will have different numbers for the same type of sound. We'll have different noise levels for the same type of sound. And the regulation is not particularly clear on which of those metrics we're supposed to be using. So as we're kind of going forward, we're kind of looking at a number of different ways to represent sound levels just to make sure we sort of cover all of our bases. So what we're seeing here on this plot are, on an hour-by-hour basis over those 5 days, different ways of looking at the measured sound levels, and for each individual hour. So what we have here, when we talk about the blue bars, is the LEQ. That is the equivalent noise level. That is essentially a measure of all the noise energy from everything that's happening over that 1 hour. Sometimes people call that the average noise level. That's not quite right, but for purposes of this discussion, maybe it's a fair approximation for what you can think of it as. We also have the maximum sound level, the Lmax. That's represented by by the black line. That is really the maximum noise level in any 1 second period in that 1 hour period. So it could be a twig snapping, could be somebody shouting, could be any sort of loud event that happens over an hour. That is what that black line represents. Now, the Lmax, the maximum noise level, is a metric that is very intuitive to the layperson. You're just thinking, okay, the highest noise level, that's how loud something is. Unfortunately, it's not always really representative of the noise in context. The way I think about it is, if you think about noise levels in terms of temperature, and I say, well, back in July, it was 100 degrees in Wethersfield for a couple of days, right? Well, so if that 100 degrees represents Wethersfield, then I don't have to buy a winter jacket. I don't have to have heat in my house, right? Because the temperature max is 100 degrees, that's my environment. And really what it says is that 100 degrees is not really representative. It's representative of that one particular period, but it's not something that you want to characterize an entire environment over a year about. That's the same thing with an Lmax. An Lmax is really a maximum 1 second or even a smaller period of noise that may or may not be representative of what's actually happening over the entire period that we care about. We have 3 statistical measures here, the L10 and the L33. I'm going to ignore those for now and just look at the L90. So again, that's our background noise level, our sort of our remaining background din. If you discount all of the immediate type sounds that you might hear, that's represented by the red line. And you can see here that, because it's the background sound in lieu of anything else that's happening, it tends to be the lowest. And you can see that on this plot, it is the lowest. So looking at our results over this 5 days, our typical LEQ is about 55 in the daytime to about 40 at night. That's pretty typical of the type of environment that the park is in, maybe a little high because of the Berlin Turnpike. Our L90 is about, less than 50 during the daytime, less than 40 at nighttime. Again, it's probably being driven by sort of the distant traffic from the Berlin Turnpike and I-91, but again, it's common from what you would expect. I will mention that on the night of the November 15th and the morning of November 16th, there was a storm, so that creates a little bit of higher noise levels that you would see, higher than you would typically see during the nighttime periods. And then on the last day of measurements on the 18th, the noise levels get very high, and that's due to some construction or lawn maintenance activity that was happening near the baseball field by the microphone. So that's where that's coming from. But we're really seeing those that are really our average noise levels during the daytime are roughly around 40 to 55 dBA. So that was a discussion of what's happening now. I should also mention too about these noise levels. Again, we're measuring in November, and this is usually typically a fairly active park. Now in November, the weather is cold. Really wasn't much activity going on other than folks walking their dogs. Presumably, if we had done this measurement in June, July, or August with more activity at the fields, you would expect some of these daytime noise levels to be higher. But what we see here, though, is we're kind of having sort of a conservative estimate of what the existing background noise levels are because there's really no activity happening in the park. Now, for our what we could say acoustical model predictions. That is basically two things. One is what is the potential future noise levels from the proposed pickleball court, and then what is the existing noise levels from the activities that happen currently in the park. So again, we were measuring in November. We couldn't measure those activities, so we're using noise calculations, a noise model, to figure out what those noise levels from those current activities are. We're using a software-based model called SoundPlan Essential. The model algorithms are based on an international standard for doing noise predictions for various purposes. That noise model incorporates a number of different factors into the calculations. It factors in what we call the reference noise levels. Basically, what is the baseline noise level for a particular activity? It factors in how noise levels decrease over distance. It factors in changes in terrain. So as sound waves travel over terrain and that terrain changes, those changes in terrain can cause noise reflections or can absorb sound and reduce, they can reduce sound levels in some directions, increase sound levels in other directions, depending on those what we call undulations or those the topographic changes. So the model accounts for that. So in this figure that we have here, we have the blue dots that are the receivers, AKA the homes, that could potentially impacted by the pickleball court and other activities. Those blue dots are being placed on the property line because that's where the noise or the noise regulation applies to us, right? It's not at the homes, it's at the property line, which in all these cases are closer to the pickleball courts compared to the actual structures. We have red dots, which are the current fields. We received some operational information from that from the planner, so appreciate that. We used that in our calculating future noise levels, and we accounted for a number of existing sources, including the baseball fields, soccer fields, tennis courts, the skate park, basketball courts, the dog park, and the pond. And for the pond, we assume that the sources are coming from the beach area of the pond. And then obviously we predicted noise levels from the pickleball courts based on the size of the courts. So is everybody still with me so far? So we talked about, the calculations that we did, the noise model that we used to predict pickleball noise levels. So they are based on, a baseline measurement of pickleball noise, which is something that my firm measured in Falmouth, Mass. A couple years ago. So the layout of that course, of the court where we did the measurements is similar to the proposed court. Was 4 pickleball courts with active double games, simultaneous active doubles games for the measurements. And so those measurements gave us we have the average noise levels for those pickleball matches and the maximum noise level from that pickleball matches. And we took that information, fed it into our computer model, and then that gave us a predicted future noise level from the pickleball courts at each of those blue points. And then we did the same for the other activities based on either information that we had in-house or for information that we were able to obtain from the literature. So this is, and again, this table is in the report, but these are the results. So yes, it's a lot of numbers. Part of the reason why it's a lot of numbers is one, we're predicting levels at a bunch of different homes. So, there's 18 different homes and properties that we're looking at. And then again, because the town regulation doesn't really get into the specifics of what noise metric we should be using for our comparison, we basically predicted noise levels from 3 different types of metrics and then compared each of those to the regulation. So the metrics are the total LEQ. So remember, our LEQ is our equivalent noise level, our quote-unquote average noise level of the event. The total LEQ is the average noise level from basically over the entire period of one pickleball match, which is about 10 minutes or so. So you're basically looking at the average noise level over about 10 minutes of a pickleball match. We're looking at our 1 second LEQ, which is the highest 1 second period over a particular pickleball match. And then we're looking at what's called the LMAX fast, LAF max level, and that is the loudest 1/8 of a second period over a pickleball match. And what we're basically showing here is that for our LAQ metrics, the predicted noise levels from the pickleball court meet the town regulation, meet the town daytime limits at all of the locations that we looked at. For looking at the LAF max fast measurements, again, so that's sort of the worst case of 1/8 of a second issue, 1/8 of a second period over measurements. And again, that 1/8 of a second, that might be a pickleball paddle hit. It might be the ball hitting the court. It might be somebody yelling in celebration. It's just whatever that kind of, that very quick, very sharp 1/8 of a second peak period is. And we see that in this case, we have 5 different properties where we exceed the daytime noise limits by about 1 to 2 dB. And I don't, it's,
Can you,
How easy
can you
it is.
characterize how much louder we're talking about when you're talking about 1 or 2 dB? Doesn't sound like much.
it's so, the general rule of thumb in our field is that in a very, very careful laboratory experiment, a person wearing headphones, concentrating fully, can just hear a 1 dB change in sound level. And that in a typical, somebody who's not really being focused on sounds, that kind of thing, they might hear about a 3 dB change in noise level. A 3 dB change in noise level that for most people watching their TV, that's about 1 or 2 taps on the remote to change your volume.
I have a quick question also. Is this table looking just at the pickleball court noise generation as opposed to applied together with the background noise?
So, yes, this is looking just at the pickleball noise measurements. In the next slides, we're going to have tables looking at other events, but this is just looking just at the pickleball. And again, we're showing that, depending on what metric that you're seeing, using the LEQ metrics, and this is the pickleball court without any type of noise mitigation or any type of noise blocking, noise barriers. We're just looking at, you just put down a pickleball court, didn't think about the noise, what are you going to get?
When you looked at the other events, they're all separate, right? You're not integrating any of these, are you?
Correct. Everything we're looking at is by itself. I was going to make that point when we get to that. Yes.
Just quick, so just to go back a little bit, so if I understand the LAF max and that 1 or 2 decibels, a person going about their day, moving around the house or doing something even in the yard probably wouldn't barely notice that, or would they?
Well, you wouldn't notice. So if you were just going by your day, and I played a sound at 55, and then later on played a sound at 57, and said, "Hey, which one of those was louder?" You wouldn't notice.
Thank you.
But be careful. But 57 is higher than 55, so I just don't want to say that's not. So you can see the receiver properties here. So unfortunately, we just didn't have. I think we would have liked to have actually put the addresses of the properties on this table. We just didn't have time to go through to do that. But you can kind of map out the actual residences.
Oops.
So it's essentially this group here and one of the properties down.
So it's not the closest property.
That is because the terrain itself, and something I did want to point out, so where the pickleball court is proposed to be, that area is actually sunk down a little bit relative to the baseball field. So that baseball field actually creates a little bit of a sound barrier, just kind of an inherent sound barrier, but you don't get it at that as much to the north and to the south. So that's kind of part of what you're seeing. And then also pickleball noise itself is kind of directional based on the orientation of the court. That's kind of it's kind of a combination of those effects, what you're seeing here. Now, again, so this is the pickleball with no noise abatement, no noise mitigation. So we also have, and again, this is in the report, what would happen if we used a 10-foot noise barrier material? And we're thinking about something like a vinyl type material. It's not going to be like a wood noise barrier like you see on 91 or 95. It's just something like a vinyl-based or a lead-based flexible material that you would attach to the chain link fence that's been proposed for the court. That barrier material with a height of about 10 feet on the edges along the fence line of the pickleball court, that creates about a 5 dB reduction in sound levels. So with that 10-foot barrier around the court, with that material, with that barrier, all of the noise metrics are below the town regulation.
This is on all 4 sides, right?
This is on all 4 sides. It may not necessarily be necessary to do it on the east side, but just for simplicity, we put it on all 4 sides for this model.
You want an inner and outer barrier?
Say again?
You want 2 barriers, an outside and an inside?
No, it's just one barrier around the entire, the outside
Talking
perimeter.
about an absorption barrier on the inside.
Yeah, well, I think we discussed actually that the barrier that you would put would be made of an absorptive material on the inside, which would help somewhat.
One other question I know you get later in your recommendations and conclusions to the, whatever they call sound deadening paddles and balls that you talk about later. Do you have any sense, if you just used the sound mitigating paddles and balls and didn't have the 10-foot noise barrier, how much of a reduction you'd get just from the quieter equipment?
So, yeah, so the answer to that, so we don't, our firm, we don't have a lot of specific experience with that, and there's some information in that in the literature, but it's new enough that it's not something that I want to quantify, give an exact number. My intuition, I would say my educated intuition is that a quiet barrier would probably get you those 2 dB, but then there's issues about, trying to make sure people are using them, basically trying to make sure people are using them, and whether or not it actually does do what it's supposed to. But I don't have anything. I can't give you a technical or definitive recommendation on that.
Have you ever taken noise readings at an existing facility where people were using the quieter equipment?
Yeah, we've been trying, but nobody's using them yet.
We'll have to get pickleball police then.
Just so I better understand, are these sheets that you put on the fence, what does this material look like? You talked about it's got to have a density of 4 pounds per square foot. Is that like a piece of foam? What is that?
Can you bear with me, and we'll have photos of it at the end of the presentation. It'd be easier to get to that. Anything else before we move on? Okay. All right, so that was pickleball. Now we're looking at other recreational noise activities. Okay, big table, a whole bunch of numbers. It's it's never fun to look at in a presentation, but there was a lot of things that we're looking at, and really, we did sort of simplify this for the presentation. But in terms of everything that we're looking at, this is just sort of what we wound up with.
Herb, I just want to interject just to remind everyone, this was part of the scope, is to try to understand the context and the relative sound of pickleball within the existing sounds heard within the park.
Right, so what we're looking at is each other individual activities happening at other locations around the park, and the noise levels at the same receivers where we were looking at pickleball noise levels. So each of these, for each of these cells in this table, we have an activity, we have the receiver, and there's 2 numbers, the first number and then the second number in the parentheses. That first number is, again, sort of our LEQ, our average type noise level. Our 41 is the our LMAX level, the 1 second, the 1/8 of a second highest noise level that occurs during that activity. So again, this comes from the report. It's organized a little bit differently in the slide than it is in the report, but everything on this slide is in the report. What we're showing here is that for, say, like our classic fields, we're seeing our peak sound levels anywhere from 30 to 47 dBA, our maximum sound levels, which is, and I should mention that for the classic field, this is only baseball activity by itself. It does not include the sound levels from the PA system. Okay, which that's harder for us to put because to do a prediction about, because we don't know exactly how that system is set up. So we're looking specifically just at basically baseball players hitting a ball, the crowd noise, that kind of thing. And we're seeing, though, just from the baseball activity itself, we're seeing, peak levels around 47 at some of the closest properties. Some of the other baseball fields, field number, Woods Field number 3, anywhere from about 41, the high of about 41 to a low of about 33, 32. Again, compared to pickleball with a noise barrier, again, we're seeing anywhere from 46 to 50 or so. Some of our other highest noise levels, baseball field number 5, we're seeing an exceedance of the actual town noise ordinance of about 56 at one of the southern end properties. Again, we're seeing that just because of the proximity of the field to that property and the the topography of the location. We're also seeing for the baseball, the Mitchell Field number 2 and the soccer fields, we're also seeing some exceedances of the sound levels. Again, just based on existing activity that happens at that property.
These levels are for each sport independently? They're not
Independently.
sort of assuming you had multiple games happening or anything like that?
Right.
Is that sound additive at all?
It is additive. So, and again, so without getting, without having to give you like a 30-page report of every different combination, we can't really do that. It's not easy to do that. But yeah, if you add, the decibel addition is kind of tricky, so please don't ask me to do it in my head. That's what we have computers for. But general thinking that if you have 2 levels that are the same and you add them together, the total you get from those 2 levels is 3 dB higher than the level that you have. So if I have one activity that's 55 and another activity that's 55, and I add them together, I'm going to get 58. And you can kind of use that to sort of try to scale different ways of adding levels together. But yes, obviously if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these activities happening together, those noise levels are all going to add up. So it could very well be that with 3 or 4 activities happening, those by themselves can exceed the existing town regulation. And then if you were to add pickleball on top of that, the actual total addition from that was actually going to be fairly minor. And it may not be, it sounds kind of unintuitive, but that's the way decibel addition works.
But when you did the other study just with the pickleball, was that 4 courts playing or all 4 courts
All
were playing?
4 courts with doubles playing simultaneous.
Okay, thank you.
So then we have another table with some of the other activities happening in the park. So these activities are generally farther away compared to this previous slide. But again, you can see nothing exceeds from these further away activities or these quieter activities, nothing exceeds the town limit. But you can have a context of some of the sound levels that you're hearing. Point out the dog park. Again, this is the assumption for that is in the report. I don't remember it offhand, but I believe it's on the order of a few dogs barking simultaneously for the peak sound levels, and that's where you're seeing some of the 50 and 51s. It's a bunch of dogs barking all at once. So again, so that's basically the upshot of what we did is, again, we looked at the pickleball sound levels, we looked at the other activity sound levels, so we have the context in terms of what is happening there now and how is pickleball noise levels in relation to those other activities and to the town regulation. So to summarize, basically, our pickleball noise levels, looking at the worst case Lmax fast, sort of that 1/8 of a second highest sound level over a period. We're seeing sound levels of about 46 to 57 dBA without any mitigation, without any noise barrier. You just put down a pickleball court, you don't care what happens. That's about what you're going to get at the houses to the west of the park. Now, if you, and again, this, it's not necessarily constant noise levels. It just, could be that one extra hit, that one shriek of delight, that kind of thing. That's what we're talking about. The average levels that you're kind of seeing over repetitive periods will be somewhat lower than what we're seeing here. Now, if you're looking at, if you do want to apply abatement, looking at pickleball noise with a barrier, our sound level is about 41 to 52 dBA at the closest residences. So even looking at sort of the worst case predicted sound levels from the pickleball courts, it meets the town regulation. And I'd also say that it's fairly consistent with some of the other activities that are happening in the park. And that's what we're showing at the bottom of this plot here. Looking at the highest Lmax fast levels of these different activities that are already happening. You're seeing that the classic field, anywhere from 30 to 50 to 47, Mitchell number 2 field up to 63 dBA. Our soccer and tennis courts and the dog park are all above 50. And then some of our other activities are in the 40s. So what I would say that, the pickleball noise levels at least in terms of the regulation, is fairly consistent with what's happening in the park right now. So getting back to the counselor's question about what does the barrier material look like. So there's any number of different things you can do for noise barriers. The three of these four pictures, the picture to the top left, the top right, and the bottom right, these are photographs that we've taken of noise barrier materials used at pickleball courts around New England. And these are basically vinyl wrapped type noise curtains, the type that you see used for construction sites. And they have a good history, and they work for, if properly installed and properly configured, them, they'll give you 4, 5, 6 dB of reduction. The picture we have to the bottom left of the screen, that is a rendering done by a vendor who has noise barrier materials targeted to the sports market, where you have alternating transparent and opaque materials to allow a little sunlight to come into the court and to be able to see what's going on in the court while still providing noise reduction. And again, these are just these are some of the options. There are any number of other options that can provide some noise reduction.
Have any of your studies been with arborvitae around there using it?
So trees and foliage essentially do not block sound. That's sort of a common fallacy. A lot of times what happens is if you're in an area where you have a lot of trees, but say by a highway, and the trees block your line of sight to the highway, and what happens is you still hear the trees, but since you still hear the highway, but since you don't see them, you don't really think about it. Then somebody comes through and chops down all the trees. Now you see the truck coming through, and you think it got louder. It's really sort of a trick that your mind is playing on you. If you actually measure with and without the tree, the sound level itself is not going to make a difference.
Going back to the question I had before about all four sides. So if you applied any one of these on the north, south, and the west side, it would still give you the 3 to 5 dB reduction?
It would give you, I would say, well, without having run the model, I don't want to say definitively. I'm confident, based on my experience, that it will give you some reduction. I don't want to say it's going to give you the same reduction without having run the model.
You also mention in your report that if the courts were excavated a little deeper, that could have some effect. Could you just explain what kind of effect and how much?
So when we talk about, so sound levels can be from a source to a person or to a receiver or to a property. If you have a direct line of sight, then there's no reduction in that sound from source to person. Now, if you have something that blocks that line of sight, so it could be like a noise wall, it could be a structure, something where the sound has to go over it to get to where it's going, that's what creates a reduction in sound level. You can get that same reduction in sound level for something like a retaining wall or something like a curvature in the earth or a berm or something like that. If you right now, the area where the pickleball courts are proposed to be, that is actually sunken relative to the I think that's the classic field or the
Baseball?
Yeah, classic field. Yeah, it's sunken relative to that baseball field, and it actually very, very nearly blocks the line of sight, at least from a person's height. It almost nearly blocks the line of sight from the pickleball court to the homes on the west side of the park. And if you were actually to dig a little bit deeper, where you would get a total blockage of that line of sight, that would create a slight reduction in noise levels. So that's what we would say is, if you can help yourselves by, don't level out the field and raise it up. If you could actually bring it down a little bit, sink it into that hillside to block that line of sight between the pickleball strikes and the pickleball court impacts in those homes, that'll create a slight reduction in sound level.
Also, on the LMAX, where you said it could be, a single hit or a voice or something like that. So you could have those with all of the other types of games that are going on as well, if somebody's yelling or whatever. But for the striking of the ball in the pickleball, are just some of the ball strikes going to hit the LMAX depending on how hard they are and things like that?
They could. So, yeah, so one of the reasons, and Tim and I, we have this discussion all the time. So, LA Max is something that communities like to use because it's something easy for them to, to visualize and to comprehend. But one of the issues with LMAX is that in practice, it's actually very hard to measure. Unless the sound level you're measuring is very, very loud, like a gunshot, measuring an LMAX of something like a pickleball, of a far away pickleball court, not right next to it, but a very far away pickleball court, where you hear the pops, but those pops aren't necessarily any louder than the birds over your shoulder that are chirping. And being able to say is, okay, my sound level meter says and I have an LMAX of 60. Well, is that LMAX the pickleball pop, or is it the bird chirping, or is it the person behind me who slammed the door, that kind of thing. So, so when we talk about what the LMAX could be these different things, it's because it's very difficult to say this specifically is what the LMAX is. It's just, we have a sound sample and we say, okay, there's this going on, this going on, this going on. And our best estimate is that this LMAX applies to this, but it's hard to say for sure that it does.
So is that also true of the data from the other pickleball courts that you're using, that some of those maxes could have included other background noises?
Well, it would include pickleball activity. And I think we're pretty good at making sure it includes pickleball activity. But in terms of saying, is it the sneaker squeaking? Is it a pickleball hit? Is it somebody shrieking?
Right.
That's the kind of thing where we don't want to necessarily say it's exactly this. We just say this is the LMAX from a pickleball activity.
And I guess just one last one from me. Assuming you're at the 55 figure, that the noise ordinance happens to use, so are you still going to hear people, when the bat hits the ball or the tennis racket or the pickleball racket hits the ball, you're still going to hear that sound?
Right. So 55 does not mean you're not going to hear it. It just means 55 is the compromise value that the town, when they came up with the noise level, with the noise ordinance, decided is the balance between being able to do an activity and being able to try to protect quiet. So at 55, you're still going to hear it. Generally speaking, I would say once you get to about 30-ish or so, that's at the point where you're going to hear it outside, but you're probably not going to be hearing it inside with your windows closed. And you're certainly not going to hear it inside, windows closed, while you're watching TV or your laundry is running, that kind of thing. But, something, in the 50s, you're going to hear it, but it's unless you're really focused on it, it's not necessarily going to be disruptive to your normal day-to-day life.
From your prior experiences and stuff, do you think the location, of this particular court is a reasonable distance away from the residences?
So generally speaking, I think the common rule of thumb so far is to try to place your pickleball courts no closer than about 600 feet away from a structure. So I believe at the closest distance to the pickleball court is about 550 feet to the property line, not to the actual property. And then again, we're already kind of sunk in a little bit, so we have that little interruption in the line of sight that creates a little bit of an attenuation. And then the park itself is a fairly active park with other things going on. So trying to say, obviously trying to be sensitive to the community's concerns and acknowledging the community concerns. But I will say, in my experience, it's probably been the best location I've ever seen for where you want to put a pickleball court.
Yes, Dave.
You suggested a couple suppliers of material, and I kind of looked them up. I didn't see anywhere where there's a spec of 4 pounds per square foot. Could you suggest something? Because when we're all done here, assuming we're going to go this direction, we need to tell somebody to put this in the drawing, and I'm not sure what that would be.
Yeah, so
a cross-section of the fence and say, put this material or equivalent, but I didn't see anything that referenced that spec.
Yeah, so
Stuff was cheap though, too, which was good. Stuff wasn't expensive.
I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. But what I'm probably thinking the wording should have been is more along the lines of something with equivalent performance of something that has 4.5 pound density. So, I think we did Hush
Again, I looked them
Hutch-
up, I didn't
Hutch
see
doesn't get
anything
sound
where they
seal.
reference that
But,
spec.
well, Sound Seal's material, and their specs are public. Their vinyl loaded noise blankets do meet that spec. The other one that we have here, I think we've heard good things about them. We don't have any direct experience with them, but based on their, they have a noise reduction spec of what's called STC, I think 24. That would say that if assuming that spec is accurate, that would actually meet the requirement. That's consistent with something that has the same surface density.
So just following up on Dave's question, besides the specification, which you're right, I didn't see those either. What about who installs these? Do we have to go to a professional, or is this something that the town buys and hangs up themselves? You know, how does this work? How complicated is this system?
Not very complicated at all. Really, the only thing, and I think I think we gave some recommendations to the planners. Really, the only thing is making sure that there's no gaps, that the blankets overlap each other. But other than that, it's just like hanging up a construction blanket. It's just you attach it to the fence. Obviously, you need to do whatever you can to make sure it meets wind loading specifications, and that's not in our wheelhouse. But other than that, as long as if it blocks the line of sight and it overlaps and there's no gaps, that's really all there is to it.
And in terms of whether that alternating every other one would work, is that something that would have to be every other one is open or clear,
It looks complicated.
see-through? Yeah.
That one looks like it's complicated, that lower one.
It's just, yeah, it's an aesthetic choice. And again, my guess is Sound Seal would actually be able to put something like that together, and they're very good at their tech support is very good at working with installers and making sure they do everything right. So, again, these are just proposals. There are any number of other options that are out there for this.
When you say no gaps, one of the pictures here, I think if I'm seeing it right, does have a gap below horizontally. Does it have to go completely from the top of the 10 feet all the way to the ground, or?
It should go to the ground as much as possible. Sometimes that becomes difficult because of drainage issues. But again, for this particular court where the ground level doesn't have any line of sight because of the difference in elevation between the baseball field and the court, a gap would actually be more tolerable there than in some other locations.
If I could, just for the commission's benefit, just a reminder from the earlier conversations when we didn't have the sound analysis to determine what or if anything could be done to mitigate to stay within the noise ordinance. The sound analysis, the sound report does indicate that we can with a barrier of some sort, and the town manager did say that they could include noise mitigation to ensure that we achieve to adhere to that municipal ordinance. And so one of the suggestions that I had, and I've had the benefit of talking to the consultant, is that not knowing exactly what that spec is, but we do know that we can achieve adherence to the municipal ordinance with noise mitigation, and that not until we have a final design of the construction, including what elevation that finished floor is going to be, all of that is going to impact the type and extent of the noise mitigation required to stay within that ordinance. So I'm not saying that we can't talk about different options, but it's going to change. So,
Truthfully, as an engineer, I think you're overthinking it. I think we're going to put the fence up. We have a design. You went through this and you did a great job. I like the whole report. And we want to pick up the 3 or 4 or 5 decibels. We just go buy a standard mitigation panel and put it around the outside. And the only thing I suggest is the guy who did our design drawing, we should give him what to put there. And you can just add it to the drawing and not spend any more money other than when we go out to bid, the guy puts it in. I just don't know what that is. Because again, I couldn't find anything that said 4.5, 4 pounds. But we could figure it out, I guess.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to express my understanding of the mitigation device in the lower left quadrant of this particular page of the demonstration, where you have the alternating panels of opaque and transparent material. That is a barrier that is all the way around the court, simply because you have panels that are not transparent, you have panels that are transparent. Both are sound attenuation material. And so that still is an alternative that could be utilized by the town, and to have the alternating types of the barrier.
Correct.
The transparent panels also mitigate the sound to some extent?
Correct, yes.
Any idea, out of curiosity, even if you didn't have sound mitigation, what's the typical height of a fence around a court like this? Is it 10 feet to prevent the balls from going over, or?
No, I mean, I've seen anywhere from 4 feet to 10 feet. It's
Okay. Any other commission questions at the, yes?
So I just want to make sure I understand, because you had made a comment a little bit ago about sort of the 30 dB range, and like how you would recognize that, especially if you're indoors or something like that. So is that referring to the LEQ number, for example, in the, let's say, table 3 is what I'm thinking about, and then, or is that the LMAX number?
really both.
Okay.
So it comes down to is, do you hear the normal course of activity happening, or do you hear the actual peaks? So something that had an LEQ of 30 but had an LMAX of 45, you wouldn't, the normal activity that you hear over that period, you probably, indoors, you probably wouldn't be able to hear, but you would hear the shriek or whatever the highest level, whatever the highest, loudest sound was.
So within the context of a busy park with the sound mitigation, I'm looking at the LEQ in table 3, that would be sort of below, that would be almost like barely noticeable to a person going about their day.
You're talking about table 3 of the report?
Yes. So that one's, it's on page 13 there. But at all the receivers, they're either in the 30s or the 20s.
Yeah, well, again, but I mean, for the normal activity, yes, but you would still hear the occasional, whatever the loudest
Yeah.
things were. Maybe it could be a very hard pop or a series of very loud pops, or it could be somebody shouting or something.
But thinking about the LEQ is kind of that
LEQ,
baseline.
Yeah, the baseline kind of thing you wouldn't necessarily hear.
And then,
This is indoors, windows closed, with something happening.
I just want to go back to a discussion that ensued from some earlier meetings we had, and that's all part of the record here. I just want to make sure that it's aired out and you address it, because I think it's important. Maybe there's some of the public that's seated tonight. There was a lot of information presented last time from the internet, right? And I know that's not expert necessarily, and a lot of that is almost quantitative rather than quantitative. But one of the things that was identified in those discussions was nuisance. All right, that you got sound levels fine, and you got techniques to mitigate the amount of sound from an energy perspective that you went through. This is great. I mean, from that perspective, it's understandable that this is fine. But from a nuisance perspective, have you looked at that factor at all? And is that something that your company's looked at? And what can you say about that?
So we've not specifically looked at nuisance for pickleball. We've been through the nuisance discussion with working with the town of Salisbury a few weeks ago. So would pickleball, using the definition of that, would pickleball be a nuisance? Probably, but I think almost every other activity happening in the park would also be a nuisance, in that same definition.
I think, just to clarify Peter's question, I think we heard bits and pieces that, I don't know, I can't remember which article I read it in, it's almost the same thing that comes up with leaf blowers. I think there's something about the pitch with the racket hitting the ball. It's not necessarily the absolute loudness of it, it's the pitch of it that's effective.
Right, so pickleball, this is something we looked at for, I think it was for Falmouth or Mashpee. So there's any number of sports that have sort of impact type sounds, golf driving range, batting cage, baseball, basketball, tennis. and then pickleball. And what makes pickleball a little bit different than those other sports is that we have a lot of mid-frequency sounds at 1,000, 2,000 hertz. Basically, think about. I'm not a musician, so I'd like to give you a note, but I can't. But something like a sort of a high-pitched woman's voice, kind of that thing. Pickleball has that, which some of the other sports don't, and that makes it a little bit more noticeable to people. So for this analysis, we haven't looked specifically at that because we're focused on, again, sort of context of other sports and looking at the town regulation, which other than weighting the noise levels, which accounts for how humans hear, we didn't look at that specifically. And to be honest, I think, again, that's one of the things is where there's not quite a lot of agreement among the community as to how to look at. So, we're just kind of trying to use the tools that we have to, that's just go, for now.
In the other situations, in Salisbury, were you hired by the town itself?
So there was a project proponent, there was had an expert, there was a community that had an expert, and there was sort of doing analysis, and I was hired by the town to help them interpret what that analysis was. And nuisance, when you say nuisance, I'm not talking about the specific legal term nuisance, not just a nebulous term. That was something that came up a lot, and then we're trying to find a way to navigate how to interpret nuisance in terms of that town regulation.
And in that situation, did you recommend either the sound barrier on the fence and or the quieter equipment?
That wasn't pickleball. That was something completely different.
Oh, okay.
But it was just nuisance language and how that came apart.
In Salisbury, I thought you said was a pickleball facility?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay. How standard is it to have the sound deadening material on the fence and or the quieter equipment in your experience on pickleballs specifically?
Well, so again, pickleball is fairly new. It's something we've been recommending. It's something that other consultants have been recommending. And I think you're seeing that I think every pickleball court we've seen in the last year or so has something up the, some version of that. So I think it's kind of one of those things where it's sort of a standard, if you're building a pickleball court anywhere near where somebody lives, you do that.
Other commission questions at this point? I'm going to open it up to public comment then at this point. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak, I would ask that you come up to the podium, and Mr. Singleton, we will get back to you after the public comment. If anyone would like to speak, please come right up to the podium and just state your name and address if you have a comment or a question. Sure. And you know what, could we, okay. Actually, that's fine. Turn the lights on if you want. You can still leave the screen, I guess. Okay.
I am Richard Troutman from 70 Griswold Road. In addition to the decibel noise, I think you hit it on the head with it's an annoyance, it's a nuisance. And that's our main objective, I think, for most of the people here, and that it's not going to go away, especially during the summer months when people are in their homes. We live 550 feet away from the pickleball proposed courts. Windows will be open, and we're not going to be able to get away from hearing this noise. Furthermore, I don't know, when the 10-foot tall wall, does the noise primarily go over the wall or like through it, or I guess she's gone, but
He can address that later.
We'll ask him that when he comes back.
my point being that our properties along Griswold Road are probably 10 feet taller than the base or the foundation for the pickleball courts. So we're going to be right on the same plane as the top of the wall. And I guess I would have one question for you. If you lived where I lived, would you like a pickleball court in your backyard? 550 feet away.
I think we
He'll address that
when he comes
if it
back.
comes up. We don't do discussions, okay?
Well, he's an acoustical engineer. I would think that
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't want it either, but
We'll, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Unfortunately, we couldn't see the dots on the side when you were doing your presentation, so it's... Good evening, Jim Pettit, 88 Griswold Road, also on Griswold Road. And from his presentation, thank you for that. Thank you for sponsoring to get the presentation completed. We appreciate that, but we're still not in favor of it. The engineer, I guess it is, said that pickleball is makes a unique noise. And I think some of the council members, the committee members, said that it's, the words we're using is annoying and a nuisance. And that's exactly what is troubling, that the noise from pickleball is unique. It's not a pleasant noise, much like a tennis match or the dogs walking or running or chasing each other. And just like dogs have different frequencies, different dogs have different frequencies, and different games have different frequencies. And pickleball perhaps is the most annoying of the games that, and sorry, with all due respect, but the idea that you're going to put up a sign saying, please use soft and quiet materials, come on. Who's going to enforce that? I heard the joke, someone was commenting of pickleball police. It ain't going to happen. And I don't even recall seeing a Dick's Sporting Goods saying, these are the soft, quiet materials, use these. We sell these specifically. Come on, ain't gonna happen. Also, that he commented that a pickleball match is 10 minutes in length. Just a quick search on internet, which we all know is not reliable, but yet that's probably where we got the information as to how long a pickleball match lasts, is anywhere from, my quick research sitting there was 15 to 20 minutes. And if it's a spirited game and a competitive game, it could go on for 20 to 30 minutes. And if it's as popular a sport as we're being told to spend this kind of ridiculous money, this kind of money, there'll be lines out the gate, so it'll be continuous from, they're saying from open from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock or maybe 8 o'clock. That's pretty annoying to enjoy breakfast and your cup of coffee with the sound of pickleball being played, and then at night to come home after a hard day's work or retired to sit on your back porch and listen to an annoying and unique sound of a nuisance. So there we are, of a quality of life. And when I think of a park, I think of quiet. Of course, there's baseball games and kids swimming and enjoying the park. But this is a unique noise, and it's annoying. And again, we would hope that you do not pass this and think responsibly of the neighbors. And it's not just there, we also have the Eleanor Buck. I can't imagine what questions you're going to have for the snakes to this construction. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, please come up.
Hi, Kathy Ferrara, 24 Pickering Lane. I play pickleball. We play in Rocky Hill. Rocky Hill started around the same time as Weathersfield trying to put up the courts. They got the federal funding just like Weathersfield did. We've been playing there for over 2 years. They have 6 courts. They're absolutely beautiful. And people do not play there constantly. They might start playing like at 8:30 in the morning, and they'll play for maybe 2-3 hours. And then there's a lull, and then maybe it goes back in the afternoon. If you don't put lights up, people are not going to be playing at night. So just don't put lights on the court. The other thing is, I understand what these people are saying about they don't want this noise, but it's a park. You bought houses in back of a park. We used to live near the Berlin Turnpike, and we heard that noise all day long. We knew when we bought our house that we were going to hear that noise. All the towns around us have had pickleball courts. We play over in East Hartford. If you go over to East Hartford, there is a school adjacent to the pickleball courts. There's houses right across the street. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of money that has been spent trying to, justify this. I don't understand. I understand you people don't, like the noise and everything like that, but it is not that bad. It doesn't go on all day long. And all the other towns are doing it. So, I mean, we've been waiting for years to get pickleball in Weathersfield. And we have the money. It was approved by the town council. We've spent all this money to do the study. And so what are you going to do? Because I saw on that chart, some of the soccer noise is too loud. Some of the baseball is too loud. I mean, so we're not going to play baseball, or we're not going to play soccer because the decibels are too high. I just think it's ridiculous, and I think we got the money. Let's just do it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this? Yes.
Peter Garardo, 60 Griswold Road. I'd like to thank this commission for doing their due diligence about this permit. This is the most interaction I've had with the town about any park plans. I've spoken to the town council 5 or more times about the park, and for them to engage the neighbors about their plans. And with the exception of these meetings by the Planning and Zoning Commission, I've been wasting my breath at town council meetings. I don't think they care, all right? So they did this when originally it was going to be next to the Mitchell home, and then they moved it to the center of the park, next to the tennis courts. From my understanding, there was a meeting of the Shade Tree Commission. I didn't know about it, because the town doesn't engage major stakeholders like the neighbors about pickleball, or where the pickleball was going to be. I would have spoken in favor of that, because that's what they presented in September of 2024. And then they moved it. This thing has moved around more than the borders of Poland in the 20th century. Trees grow back, all right? And I've seen plenty of trees in the 3 decades I've lived at this house that the town has taken down and have never replanted. So I don't know the details of the Shade Tree Commission or what the issue was over next to the existing tennis courts. So the report from Crossfire Acoustics was thorough, and I appreciate your work, and the work they did with the models. In my line of work, we work with models for safety critical aircraft systems that are predictable, and I know that models are not always foolproof. We're tweaking them here and there through our qualification testing, and then with flight data later on. And one of the things I thought that was in the October meeting that brought on this sound study was the nuisance factor. And I don't think that has been answered. The other thing is what is the nuisance at altitude? That measuring device was, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 feet off the ground. You know, what is it at the second story of my property? Now, my property is, in fact, my building is 550 feet away. That's what we were told in October. But my property line is 355 feet away. But how does this sound go through the air onto the second story of a building, which, you know, my windows are 20 plus feet high up in the air from looking towards the east? The recommendations of the sound barriers, this is something that was not in consideration at the presentation, original presentation in September. There was going to be a windscreen. And, you know, sound barriers make sense. But I can't imagine what this thing is going to look like with sound barriers all around it. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb right in the middle of this beautiful park. It's going to be not only an ear sore, I believe an eyesore. And if it was next to the tennis courts, off the side of the road on the east side, south of the tennis courts, where we were told it was going to be a year ago September, before they told us, they never told us, excuse me, that this thing was being moved around. Nothing from those people. But it's going to be an eyesore. Because I believe that the tennis courts have a windscreen on the east side. I don't believe they have it on the west side. But I just don't see how this thing is going to look. And the photographs that the engineer showed, you know, these were in tight areas and they weren't out in the open. So if this decision is going to be made that I don't agree with for this system, is, you know, you need to think hard about the adverse effects for, you know, both the park, you know, my property, and the health of the neighborhood. And so, no stadium lights, all right? Quieter equipment. I understand pickleball police, but you can try it. Hours of operation that are posted. You know, I live next to the park, and Paul would know this, because the soccer oftentimes goes way too late, and I can remember saying, get off the field when you were coaching my daughter. You know, people don't leave. It's not safe, all right, when things are being done at night. And that's a general thing that the park board needs to understand. Sundown is sundown, not 40 minutes after sundown. And I've observed this over the years. It's unsafe. I'm like, let's get the heck out of here. If it is put in this location, one thing that I didn't glean from the report was the sound study was done with vegetation. The grass hadn't gone brown yet. The ground hadn't frozen. The snow hadn't fallen on it. What is the increased effects of that type of environment on the annoying sound, of the nuisance sound? All right. In the wintertime, things seem to be louder. So I believe that the tennis court nets are removed after Halloween, and they're put up in the springtime. There would need to be, I believe, a time when these are not used. No winter operation. If this does go forward, which I'm opposed to, with a sound barrier, I believe that planting trees and vegetation to block the view of this would be necessary. So what it seems like from what the consultant said is we're kind of guinea pigs with this. This is a new thing. They're still trying to sort this stuff out. We really want to be guinea pigs? And I could care less about East Hartford and Rocky Hill and all these other places, all right? I don't live there, all right? But we need to have conversations about this stuff before we come to meetings like this. And the town didn't do that. So this commission has their rules, all right? The town council just gets free COVID money. Remember, this is COVID money. This is fake money printed that is causing inflation that we're all dealing with right now. You guys have nothing, that's me getting off on my soapbox, because it's crazy what's going on out there. But it's a function of the inflation of the dollar and low interest rates that has happened. But they get this free COVID money from the state, and they decide, with no input from important stakeholders, the neighbors, to jam this noisy item into a neighborhood. And my mother-in-law plays pickleball. My daughter does. They don't, they do it outside of town. I know there's indoor places on the Berlin Turnpike. There's discussion about other activities at the park. Well, typically those are only for a little bit of time when kids, especially the ball or the soccer. This is an adult thing that can start at 7 o'clock in the morning. All right, it adds extra time of nuisance. And where I live, the Mitchell 1 or 2, whatever's closest to the property line, it's little kids. It's a joy to see them play. All right, they haven't turned into, AAU players yet, and they're there for an hour and they go home. So part of all this is the neighbors haven't been interviewed. We haven't been engaged. You just go on and present this stuff, and we're spending a lot of your time, and I appreciate the time that you're doing in your service to the town. But it's being jammed down the throats by the town council, and what they've done is not right. And it's going to create a nuisance, and it's going to ruin the character of the park in the proposed location. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gardo. Yes.
Thanks. Eileen Godbout, also on Griswold Road, 187 Griswold Road, up the hill, not bordering the park. I would also like to echo Peter. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your volunteerism. And I also apologize. I am late to the party. I don't know anything about what you referred to in the beginning of the meeting about what has already been said and what is already on the record. And I think one of Peter's keywords is stakeholders. There are so many stakeholders. I am so grateful for the Shade Tree Committee, because those tree lovers, of which I'm one, are stakeholders in the park. And I am so grateful for the results of last year's referendum, because the people who voted clearly said, we love our park and we want this park to be protected. And I think that it just strikes me as so haphazard. My apologies again. I'm sure you have put in so much time and effort. But I think, as it's been said for 20 or more years, Mill Woods Park, this treasure that we have, needs a master plan. And from something as simple as the placement of the porta potties, like, who decides to put a porta potty right next to the busy sidewalk under a tree? It's not a great location for the porta potty. To these big things like the placement of a permanent pickleball facility, it just has to be all stakeholders desires need to be taken into consideration. And I know you try to do that, but I think with a master plan with plenty of input from all parties concerned would definitely be in all of our best interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? This will be the last call. One more time, anyone else? Okay, seeing, yes? You'd have to come back up. Just reintroduce yourself, please, for the record.
Again, Jim Pettit, 88 Griswold Road. Question I had on the sound deadening material, and not to be sarcastic or funny, whatever, but doesn't it become like a kite if we have the winds going through there and potentially take down the fence that you just spent how many thousands of dollars to put up? That concerns me. So I just raised that question, that if the wind comes through, and again, it sounded funny, but again, we have the buck, what do we call it? The
Buffalo Nature Center?
Thank you. The Nature Center, yes. What is the possible deleterious effects to the insects and animals that we have there? Will they be annoyed by it then? Just all those considerations. But again, the biggest factor for me is the wind barrier, the wind hitting the barrier and becoming a kite and taking down the fences and all. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last call for any additional public comment. Seeing none, Mr. Singleton, if you could come back up. And there were a number of comments and questions. Do you want to take a shot at the ones that you remember, and we can remind you of any others that aren't on your list?
Sure. So I think a couple comments that came up a couple of times was the noise going, assuming that a barrier was constructed along the fence, noise going over the fence, and noise relative to the elevations of the properties. So the noise model that we use for that is a three-dimensional model that accounts for all of that. I would, regarding whether or not we did the predictions at ground level or at the second floor, I would need to consult with. Yep.
Thank you.
So I would need to check with Tim to see what he assumed for the model. I think though generally for daytime type activities we look at first floor height noise levels. Then for nighttime activities we look for second floor heights where there are bedrooms. So I'd have to reconfirm that. But if the numbers in the report, if they do represent first floor locations, the second floor locations will probably be somewhere between 0 and 1 dB higher. So depending on how the rounding goes, it might increase by about a dB for some of the locations. The question about annoyance, I guess there was a comment about even if it meets the noise limit, it can still be annoying. Yeah, that's true. And that's sort of a subjective determination that I think the council will need to decide is how they want to approach that. As technical consultant, I can't really say that something is or is not annoying to you. We can just talk about annoyance in terms of large populations. And and the 55 dBA limit comes from essentially annoyance of large populations, but that may or may not apply to any individual person. Frequency characteristics of pickleball. Yes, again, pickleball does sound different than some other sports, but again, we're looking at it in terms of the A-weighted sound level, which accounts for part of that. Part of how human hearing works and how we perceive things. The noise limit, the town noise limit, which is written in terms of A-weighted decibels, does too. And again, in terms of a technical analysis, that's how we do the analysis. There's a question about 10-minute lengths for matches. So again, we're not asserting that matches last for 10 minutes. We're just saying that what we measured were 10-minute matches, approximately 10-minute. Question about whether or not the barrier could create a kite effect with the fence. All I can say is, in my experience, having recommended those type of barriers for construction and industrial type, outdoor industrial type analysis, is not something I've ever heard happen. Not to say that it could happen, it's nothing I don't have any personal experience with. A couple of things about limiting operational times. Yeah, that's something we mentioned in the report, that use should be restricted to daytime periods only, and that includes that on Sundays, activities should not be permitted there before 9 a.m. Discussion about the accuracy of consistency of models. The noise model that we used is based on an international standard called 9613. It's been around for about 30 years. It's used by nearly every consultant in the world. It's been a well-established model in terms of its accuracy of predicting noise levels. So, aesthetics of the barrier. Again, I'm not a visual guy, I'm a noise guy, but I'll just mention that one of the reasons we did recommend that barrier with the alternating opaque transparent was in part because of something that's a little less monolithic in terms of its appearance.
Are those barriers durable? Do they hold up?
So that specific transparent one, I don't know. The other ones are, yeah. The more generalized vinyl barriers are years and years and years without issues.
Could I just ask, when I think you said the vendor of the there are maybe multiple vendors of barriers, so do they have the expertise and give some level of analysis typically in terms of what they're recommending for a particular location? Are they taking into account the kinds of things you do, or do you typically have some role in that process as well?
So it's usually, assuming we communicate with the vendor or we make a recommendation or report that the client gives to the vendor, we'll basically say is, we need to be able to get X dB of reduction from this barrier. And then the manufacturer will say, okay, this material product that we have will do that. And then our engineers will instruct the client on how to mount it, how to account for drainage, wind loading, and all that other stuff. We just look at it in terms of sound performance.
And your recommendation is based on a reduction of either 3 to 6 or 4 to 6 or...
Well, it's what we need, which in this case is 5 to 6.
5 to 6, right. Okay. So in other words, you can go to a vendor and say, I'm trying to reduce by 5 to 6 decibels. How can we do that?
Yeah. Well, what we basically say is, what material do you have that would likely, we're going to use other specs. Again, we're trying to keep it approachable to the layperson for this analysis, but there's other specifications that we would get where we would know that would result in a 5 to 6 decibel type reduction, or whatever it is we would need for the client. Question about frozen ground. So if it's just frozen ground with no snow, you might see an increase of less than 1 decibel, but I think the assumption, though, would be that if it was frozen ground, that residents would be inside their homes with the windows closed. So there's not much of a chance. So it's not like in the summer where you're inside but you have your windows open, or you're outside in your picnic table or your patio. You'd likely be inside. So if there was any activity in the court, it might be slightly louder outside, but there's likely going to be less people listening to be able to hear that. Master plan, that's not me. Okay, there was a question about would I, as an engineer, want to live there? Again, it's a question I often get for these types of projects, no matter what side I'm on. It's not, and I know it's going to sound like a cop-out, but it's not really a fair question for me to answer, because I haven't chosen to live in this town, on that street, on that park, by the park or whatever, because there's going to be any number of things that I'm going to prioritize in terms of where I want to live and what I want to have where I want to have affect me. I can say right now that I live underneath one of the landing corridors for Bradley Airport. So on overcast days, I get to hear the planes come down. I've got a church 200 feet from my house that likes to have events until 11 o'clock at night. But those things I'm not particularly happy about, but there's other reasons why I want to live there, and they all, to me, offset. And I think those are what I caught.
And you also recommended the sound mitigating paddles. So I know you said that's an evolving area, but it was one of your recommendations. Is the thought that it could only have some beneficial effect potentially?
Yes, what I would say is don't count on that by itself. But yes, I would say is in terms of looking at other things. Yes. Keep the maintain the hours of operation during daytimes only, and look at some sort of if at all possible, look at some sort of barrier material.
There was sort of another question posed. It wasn't very clear, but one gentleman mentioned that there was an alternate location that was being considered. I think it was next to the tennis courts. And there may be other issues there about trees or no trees being removed. But just hypothetically, if this were moved from where it is now to where the tennis courts are, which is probably another 150 feet or 200 feet away from this location, and would be next to the tennis courts, and there's a lot of vegetation, what's your opinion on something like that?
Okay, with the caveat that we have not evaluated that. So you get a little bit of a reduction from the farther distance, but since you're moving farther away from that elevated baseball field, you lose out on some of that shielding. So there might be a little bit of a trade-off there. How much that trade-off is, I don't know, because we'd have to do a model.
So it's not clear that it would be any better from a sound perspective. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying I don't. I'm saying there are trade-offs that I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
So just wanted to clarify about the thickness of the sound barrier. So you mentioned the minimum surface density of 4 pounds per square feet. So you mentioned some other specifications that would be visible if you looked at the products. Those are kind of equivalent specifications to what would come out to that?
Yeah, so basically, when we say 4 pounds per square foot, that implies some other technical that material would have some other technical properties that means it works the way we want it to. But there may be other materials that are lighter than that may still work the same way. It's just that, without being able to, without giving you like a 2-page list of specifications that you got to look at, that is, by saying that, that's our proxy of if your material has this, you're going to be fine. But there are other ways to meet equivalent performance of that without necessarily being that heavy.
But it wouldn't necessarily be listed as the specific detail and specification because it's the material.
Right. Yeah, really what it is that's boilerplate language that we put on our reports, and I think it's seeing the focus on it is probably something we should have caveated a little bit more in the report.
Thank you. And then one other thing, you mentioned that this was possibly one of the best, most appropriate locations that you've seen for pickleball courts?
You can say, in terms of the pickleball courts and the evaluations we've done, it is by far the best location. Not to say it's the it's the ultimate location or whatever. We're just saying in terms of our experience, if all of our other pickleball projects, if they had said, those projects would have been, much more straightforward and much easier and much more approving by the community, I think, if it was in a situation like this.
Thank you.
Any other commission questions?
Just have a quick question. You're saying right now that on the property line, the farthest property line from their houses, there's 50 decibels on, not constantly, but just jumping up and down at times, correct? Because...
You're talking about, in terms of the ambient noise level, you're talking about...
Yeah, just when your chart, you had up to 55 decibels and 50. I'm just trying to put in perspective something.
So in terms of, our daytime existing average LEQ noise levels in the middle of the daytime is around 50. So your daytime noise levels are between 40 and 50.
Yet a residential air conditioning unit can shoot anywhere from 30 to 50, which is 15 feet from their houses. That's what I'm trying to get a perspective. of the noise level that's going to be at the farthest property line opposed to a noise level that's on their property. But I just know from
Well, sorry,
putting an air conditioning unit in-
what I just gave you now was the existing noise level. Now, I wasn't giving you pickleball noise levels, I was giving you the existing noise level.
Okay.
In the daytime, average noise levels are between 40 and 50 at where we measured
But
it.
their neighbor's air conditioning unit will make more noise than they're going to hear from that pickleball unit.
It'll be louder. Again, I'm not going to say, though, that you're not going to be able to, you won't be able to hear the individual elements of a pickleball. You won't be able to hear the individual pops. You'll still be able to hear it. But in terms of the overall noise level, yes, they're going to be comparable.
I'm just trying. It's that low at that line. That's the thing that.
Yeah, so again, this is obviously be a very different story if they were building the pickleball courts 20 feet away from the property line. And again, so I say the rule of thumb is to try to keep your pickleball courts about 600 feet away from structures, and we're already at 550 from the property line, plus we have a little bit of an elevation change. So it's, I think just based on on that rule of thumb, we're already sort of in the right spot.
Any other commission? Yes, Todd.
I just would like to hear one clarification of the application itself. As presented to us back in October, and again on this new application or renewed application from the town for this installation, there was, I could find no reference in the commitments that are stated in the application relating to the installation of a sound attenuation barrier around the courts. I would like to have a kind of a definitive response from the responsible town officials as to whether or not a sound attenuation barrier around the proposed pickleball courts is now part of the application for this installation by the town.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was proposed in their plans, but we certainly have the ability to require it.
I understand that. I'm looking at it in and apart from any requirements that the commission may attach to a possible approval of the application. I would still like to hear whether or not that is that particular aspect of an installation would be a part of their application.
I can only speak for the conversation. It is not in writing in the application because the application was submitted before the discussion of the sound occurred. But when I made the request to spend the money and procure a acoustic engineer, sound consultant, the town manager did express before we spent the money that if noise mitigation would be required for the town to remain within its municipal ordinance, that they would include that in the project. But that's just me stating, repeating a conversation I had with the town manager, which I think is the best we will have here tonight.
Okay. Then from that conversation with the town manager, it would appear that the town would have no objection to this commission imposing the installation of a sound attenuation barrier around the pickleball courts as part of the conditions for approval.
Well, I don't want to speak for the whole town as one, but I know that that's the expectation, and whether or not the town agrees, the commission does have the ability to make that a condition. But I do believe that they would comply happily, too. No one that I spoke with wants to create any undue nuisance or any type of negative impacts for quality of life to any neighbors.
And the responsibility of the commission, as I see it, is to weigh and balance the interests fairly and objectively of all the people within the town of Wethersfield, and that the consideration should be given to the blessings and benefit for the entire community, not just the surrounding neighborhood that would be potentially affected by this installation. At least that's how I appear to believe our role is to be, to guide us in our consideration.
The other commission questions of Mr. Singleton while he's at the podium? Any further? Can I just ask how much of a, how would it involve a lot of time, if the commission were inclined to approve this and require the fabric on the fence for sound mitigation? Would it take much time for you or your firm to just look at the options for the product to be used and just give your thoughts and whether you think it's an acceptable material to be using, an acceptable installation? Is that something that typically is part of your involvement in projects like this?
Yeah, I mean, we can do whatever you ask us. Well, we can do much of whatever you ask us to do.
Or help just create a spec sheet or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, depending on if it's asking us to define multiple alternatives for you to look at, or if it's just reviewing something, that's going to be different than reviewing something that you found.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's a couple days.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, that be something that our town planner in consultation with the consultant could basically include as the supplemental consideration or requirement pursuant to a motion to approve the application.
In the part about there'd be some engagement by Mr. Singleton or his firm?
I think there would be a consultation between the town planner to provide that kind of more specific wording, although I'm reluctant because I don't think it's part of the commission's job to draft specifications on a project.
Right. I mean, I think we're going to have if we close the hearing and get into deliberations, I think we need to talk through all of these items, but while he's here, last opportunity to ask anything of Mr. Singleton. Tony.
I think I want to requote Mr. Drake's comment that we're overthinking this. We have professionals that are department heads. We have a great engineer, great town planner. We've looked at over a dozen, maybe 18 reports months ago. Over the last 3 months alone, I think I've talked to at least 50, maybe 60 people. So, there's nobody putting anything down my throat, and I don't know if we need to write the RFP here from our motion.
That's not what I intended. I'm simply saying we have parameters to set, require the wall, the barrier, yes or no, and if so, that it's got to be, in accordance with the report recommendations, and then I think we could suggest that town staff work, for example, with Mr. Singleton to make sure that whatever product they pick he believes is appropriate. I don't think we need to be the ones to determine what the product is.
Do we need to welcome Mr. Singleton further than what we're doing now?
Sorry, I don't think we get involved in that part of it. I think our question is yes or no, is there a barrier, basically, requirement? And then I think we have to let the people who are familiar with that work it out. But right, all I'm saying is it would be an opportunity just to at least ensure that however it's selected, it's thought out by somebody who has that capability, which is certainly not us. Okay.
Yep.
So any other questions for Mr. Singleton? Then I guess we have a next order of business would be, and do you have anything else, Mr. Singleton, before?
I mean, I would just also say in terms of working with a vendor, really, you could almost just give them the report and say, can you have a product that can do what these guys need to do?
Yep.
And most of them will be able to figure it out.
Okay, that's helpful, very helpful.
If you want to pay us to do stuff, we'll take that too.
Sorry?
If you want to pay us to do stuff.
Oh, okay. No, that was helpful what you just said. So, all right, if there's no further questions of Mr. Singleton, then is there a consensus that we should close the hearing? And if so, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll motion to close this.
Is there a second? Second by Tom. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so hearing is closed. If someone would like to make a motion for discussion purposes.
I can start making the motion for Approval of 2226-25Z, a special permit for municipal recreation facility per section 3.2D1, zoning regulations of the construction improvements to pickleball courts at Millwoods, 154 Prospect Street, which would be open from 8 a.m. till sunset, to include some noise barrier and barrier materials with a 10-foot high fence, and with the final elevation of the courts to be as low as possible for design. Anything else to add?
No lights?
You did, I don't think you did. Would you add no lighting permitted, no lights?
Okay, yes, no lights. I thought that was, till sunset would
And I
imply
had-
that, but with no lighting to be constructed.
And I guess, where you say sound wall, perhaps, in accordance with the spectrum, cross-spectrum acoustics report, in accordance with the consultant's recommendations.
Sure.
In his report, yep.
Can I make 2 suggestions
Yes.
as well? Tony, you said 8 a.m. to sunset, except I think we need to say Sunday at 9 because that's when our daytime hours for sound decibel levels are.
That's fine
so-
with me, yep, to include Sunday at night.
Yeah, and then my second is that the town periodically, they can determine what periodically means, inspects the barrier and makes any adjustments, repairs, and/or replacements as needed. So, for in other words, if the barrier partially comes down in a storm, then the town needs to go out and fix it, not wait 3 months.
I don't have a problem adding that, but I think that's general maintenance. That would be on any capital item that would be in place.
But I'm just
I have
thinking
no
that
objections to adding
that
that.
without the barrier, then the sound level is going up and it no longer meets
Exactly.
requirements.
I mean, I guess technically, if the barrier were damaged and not repaired, they wouldn't be in compliance with the condition any longer with a non-functioning barrier.
Close it up.
I think. A couple thoughts I'd like to just add to the mix. In terms of the hours that have been expressed, I would suggest that it be clear that there shall be signage indicating those hours posted at the court so that people who go to use them are aware of
I would
that.
hope so, yes.
And then, Mr. Singleton did recommend the sound mitigating paddles. I appreciate that, it's not going to be practical to police it 24/7, but I think if you simply had signage that said that, I think a lot of people probably would follow it.
Highly recommending the type of equipment that's being used.
Yeah, either highly recommending or requiring, but I would go with either of those, I think, just to try to get, it couldn't hurt, right? And it could only help. And Mr. Singleton did recommend it, so.
Part of the study.
Yeah.
Problem with requirement, or is this?
I'd say
online?
simply that the condition is that signage be posted indicating that, preferred equipment, sound deadening, and we're not saying anything beyond that in terms of how it.
I have no objection to that. That would,
And is it suggesting or is it requiring? Again, it's whether
I
it's
think the signage
enforced.
should be required.
Okay, I would support that. Dave?
If this goes forward, we haven't talked about the barrier, though. Are we looking at 3-sided? I would prefer transparent. I know it's going to be
yeah.
more money, but I think I want to be transparent. If we're going to do it right.
The one with the alternating.
No, I don't want alternate. I think it should be transparent.
Oh, completely transparent if
That's
possible.
Personal opinion,
That's
yes.
going to heat up in the summer.
Why?
Don't you think, with the plastic? No?
That's beyond my expertise.
Oh, we asked the guy who makes the barriers, I guess.
I mean, I gotta.
For-
Well, it's part of
You
your-
saw the clear view
I understand.
and the
but
regular.
I don't want bullshit. I
You don't
prefer
want
to
the
be all
alternate?
I
transparent.
definitely
You don't
thought
want
the
the
one on the
alternating.
lower.
And again, 3 sides is 1 side.
I mean, I don't know that we are capable of, other than perhaps saying that we,
Preferably.
I mean, I like the one on the lower left better than the other ones, that we, would would encourage or,
I think Mr. Singleton's testimony recommended 1 or 2 sides. I don't know if he recommended.
I thought he said you might not need it
I
on the
think-
east.
Might not need it.
Just on the
Three
east.
sides is okay. That's what he said.
Again, we're not writing the RFP, so I don't know.
Well,
if we need a lot of.
I'm going to say that we should, frankly. I mean, if we don't specify exactly what barrier we want, we do need a barrier. There's no question we need a barrier.
Agreed.
Otherwise, we're not going to mitigate the sound. But if we just let this go and they put up drapes all around, it's going to look like a mausoleum. Personally, I don't want to see a mausoleum in that location at Mill Woods. I mean, there's many issues. There's aesthetic issues as well as sound issues. So, the town has done a great job with this as far as the work they've done so far, but they haven't given a lot of thought to the sound nor the aesthetics of what's going to be located here. So I can't support this if we don't at least say it's got to be, as Dave says, clear, so we don't see a mausoleum.
That company that he specified makes it so it's eye clear and it's normal panel. The biggest concern is the manufacturer will have to do a wind study.
Right, I agree.
And it may be that they'll put the eye clear in certain places and.
Right. I mean, we all know that if we're going to go with a clear one, it's going to be more expensive. That's probably a given. But other than that, I mean, it would look awful to have this 10-foot wall that looks like a big box in the middle of Mill Woods.
But could we?
Well, that company makes some if you look at their website, makes some very nice setups.
Would you consider making the motion just a little
Transparent.
different, saying,
Keep it a transparent.
keep it a transparent?
How many sides?
3.
3 sides.
He said you can get away with, you can get away with the east side, so you gotta have north,
Right. I agree
south,
with
and
you.
west.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Three
Joe,
to
what do
make
you think on this?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess he seemed pretty, I think he seemed pretty definitive that the east wasn't needed, is my recollection, right? Because it's facing away from
And we
everybody.
can always add it if it's a problem.
So I guess you could say, specify the 3, and then could we just say, we would like to see a completely or partially alternating transparent material, to be determined in consultation with the vendor
With
and
the vendor at the time that it's decided upon.
in order to achieve the recommended, because the report does recommend how many decibel reductions we're looking for.
Definitely.
Semi-transparent and,
Just semi-transparent, that, they'll decide what works.
just in consultation with final design?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have one thing too about this transparent versus visible. Just given its location and proximity to the pool where you've got the young kids around during the summer and then you got the baseball and the soccer, having a completely closed off enclosure that you can't see into from the outside with kids around, I think that's one that's probably we want to consider. So err on the side of transparency or 3 sides for that.
Or the reason to have it transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another good reason, I agree. But you said we would like to see, that's not what we're gonna
So
say.
that's how we're going to say we're directing the barrier on 3
Right.
sides, not on the east.
Right.
And that it should be, how did you phrase it? Was it semi-transparent or as transparent as may be implemented consistent with the recommendations of the consultant?
Sound
How
good?
about
Barry?
adding, you can't use pickleballs, you have to use tennis balls.
You've already got and you already added post the sign to require
Yes.
sound mitigation.
They have posting of hours of operation, which I do want to clarify, are they the same or different from the park? Number 2, signage specifying required quiet equipment. Signage be posted requiring quiet equipment, semi-transparent on a number of sides as required to be consistent and in consultation with the final design of the consultant's report.
I think that should say that whatever the material is, the sound mitigation material shall be installed on the west, north, and south sides of the facility.
Can I just because I have had more conversations with the consultant, we may not even need 3 sides based on the elevation of the finished floor. So we could be arbitrarily saying we need it on 3 sides when only 2 are needed. I just want to post that
Acoustical,
out.
the manufacturer will do an acoustical analysis and decide how many sides.
Right, that's.
But if we say no more than 3 sides as determined in consultation.
Say that, yeah. No, because he mentioned 3, or someone did.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Since we're sort of doing a collaborative
Motion.
designation of a potential motion here, I would like to express my concern about the hours that are being proposed. I concur with the 8 a.m. Start time for the operations, with the exception of Sunday, which should be 9 hours. It should be at 9 a.m. rather than 8 a.m. And insofar as the closing time for the operation, in my opinion, the time of concluding the operations of the proposed pickleball court shouldn't be based upon specifically the time of dusk, because it changes during the course of a year. I think we need a set maximum time of, and I would suggest no later than 7 p.m. for the conclusion of the operations of the pickleball court, or dusk, whichever is earlier.
I agree with that.
Okay. All right, so the
I agree with that. That's good.
bottom line is the,
I think it should be later than 7.
Yeah, but if people get out of work, they want to play pickleball.
I think it should be the same hours as our noise ordinance and just
same hours as what, Tracy?
as the noise ordinance, defines
The
the
noise
evening
ordinance,
hours.
it goes till 10 o'clock at night, so.
That's 7 a.m. till 10 p.m.
Yeah.
But I think, well, I think it's important that you start the mornings Monday through Saturday, not prior
About
to 8, and Sunday, not prior to 9. And
I
then,
think people's.
I don't know, does 8 o'clock
Having
work?
supper.
If you want
8 p.m.?
Or to go back
I
to
still
Tony's,
favor
or go
the
back to
7
Tony's
p.m.
original that says till sunset, which then varies as the seasons vary.
Which gives you a chance, if it's nice out in the evening in the summertime, to
Right.
still be able to enjoy it.
And also that we should have in any approved motion, a built-in review of, of our decision, so that a year or 2 or 3 down the road, that we can re-examine at least the terms or conditions applicable to such an approval.
I would support that, and I guess the question, Dave, if this is approved, would it be open in 2026, in the summertime or fall? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
Okay, so I guess,
My understanding, and there is some documentation in past presentations and in the documents submitted as to the start time for construction, which I
Right.
believe is anticipated for March.
Right.
And
Open in
you're
September.
looking at probably the maximum extent of construction time before opening would be 6 months. So, so at the latest, it would probably be, at September, most likely it'd be about 3 months of construction. So you're looking at maybe the end of June, first part of July for the opening.
trying to,
This is 2026.
so what do we want to, trying to figure out, I think you want to give it probably at least 12 months in
Oh, yes,
operation, if not
definitely.
18.
At least a minimum of 12 months operation.
Right, so if you-
I tend to think a longer time might be advisable, so
July of 27?
18 to 24 months.
Fine with July of 27? Oh, in the fiscal year?
That sounds good. We need to review, Dave, just to make sure you got it all, or?
I think so.
You think you got it all?
Let me
No,
just-
I think
let me
we
just
should
mention
reveal.
one other thing.
I want to make sure the times are right. So if someone wants to think about that while I'm just
The,
finishing up.
I would tend to think maybe October 1st of 2027, rather than July. That's about a 15-month period of operation.
I think, didn't we learn from the last 2 that we should set the check-in to be from a period of time at from the point at which the condition starts.
Yeah, ideally that works, but
Yeah.
if construction is, it's hard to measure when that
At some
happens.
point, the town's going to say you can use it.
Yeah, but
That's right, yeah, from
Maybe
that.
6 months from the town
That's my-
says you
yeah.
could use it.
Isn't that what we've been doing?
depends. We haven't always been consistent, but I think here we want to give it a full season is what people are saying at least, right?
Tom suggested October of '27.
That seems like it gives them at least a season and a half. probably.
October 1st of
But what
27.
if it doesn't get done till October 20?
We can, we'll
to
extend it.
revisit
If
it.
it doesn't get built or doesn't get opened, we'll extend it, but by then they'd probably not be going ahead with it, I would imagine.
I also believe that that the funding, there were, in the previous public hearings, the funding runs out by this fall.
Yeah.
So, expires.
Yeah.
So,
The
By next
winter,
fall.
the winter use of this is probably not likely. Can't imagine anybody be out there in the winter, 4 or 5 o'clock, trying to play pickleball, but, does the town take the nets off? Is that a natural conclusion for winter? I mean, all the nets come out for tennis, right?
That's up for tennis right now.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a given, right?
I can tell you from playing pickleball outside that when the weather gets cold, the balls just shatter.
So, okay, so it doesn't matter. I thought if any,
Learned the hard way, not to play in the cold.
was that the quiet equipment, or? Was that the
Oh,
quiet?
it's not the quiet equipment, so I can take out all my old ones and ruin them.
And is a written report through staff acceptable? Because we have also had issues or a question.
Maybe we're saying we'd like a
Written
Tom, are
report?
you saying you'd like them to come back and talk to us about how it's gone? How are you envisioning that?
I don't have a particular vision for the how-to. I just think
How
that
about-
we
how about a
need
written
to
report?
have some kind of review or re-examination
How about a
or
written
minimum of a report from the town planner to determine
Whether there's been issues.
whether or not those conditions should be kept or modified or reconditioned
report.
after a certain period of time of operation.
I think a written report, and then the commission always has the ability to say, based on this, we need to go back to a hearing and we want to start adjusting conditions. Good report, then that's it. But I think Tony, it's settled, I think, on October 1, 2027 as that report.
Yeah, to
back
get
that
through
way.
the season.
Okay. So I think we have it all, don't we, hopefully?
want to review
No
it?
lights right there.
I will, I still, yeah, so, motion
at
to
a
approve
time.
non-illuminated courts. Well, a motion to approve as listed on the agenda, the application specifying that the court shall not be illuminated, that there be signage requiring quiet equipment, that there, that there be sound mitigation barriers covering not more than 3 sides with as much transparency possible to achieve the modeled projected sound levels in the cross-spectrum acoustics report dated December 12, 2025, and including a written report providing a summary of the conditions post-operations not later than October 1st of 2027.
And then,
Yeah, that's just,
for existing park hours is confusing.
no, this is not really, just
Okay.
forget about all this.
How about hours of operation?
Hours of operation and signage posting.
Right, so what are the hours of
So
operation?
I think Monday through Saturday, starting at 8 a.m., and Sunday, starting at 9 a.m. is where we ended up. Till sunset in both cases, right?
I just was thinking that the signage should say requiring quiet equipment or recommending quiet equipment, because I feel like even though it's not necessarily a thing you can enforce, I can imagine someone coming up to someone and saying, "Are you using quiet equipment?" and then there being an issue there.
Yeah. I mean, we have this issue on the Putnam, on the bridge, right, with the cyclists and the walkers, right? There is no law right now that requires the cyclists to dismount. It's a narrow sidewalk, and so the signs say, you know, as a courtesy, please dismount. And the idea is that people are going to generally be decent human beings and follow the signs, right? Not everyone's going to follow the signs anyway, so I'm not going to vote, but my opinion would be we should recommend quieter equipment, and the majority of people are going to do that. They might show up the first time and not have quieter equipment and say, oh, I'm going to play today anyway, but maybe the next time they're at the store, they see a quieter equipment. My wife and son recently got some pickleball paddles, and they're quieter. So it is coming around. I noticed it because I'm like, oh, that's a real thing. So I think signage recommending or encouraging is...
Highly recommending.
I also think it's a problem to have, as someone who deals a lot with enforcement, it's not good to have a requirement that's not enforceable.
Right, and this would be, having such a requirement would be unenforceable. Point blank, there's no acceptable standard for equipment at present, so.
I think there is that equipment that's available to purchase.
There's equipment that's available that's reported to be quieter, but there's no set,
There's no testing.
adopted universal, standard for pickleball equipment, to my knowledge, anyway.
8 to 8? 9 on Saturday, Sundays.
Sunday, 9 a.m.
The reason I asked about the timing is that different than the park itself? 'Cause it seems like it, okay.
I think technically,
I think people can go in the park probably at 6 a.m. and walk their dog.
Sunrise to sunset.
I must say, I do dissent from having such a long time before the operation will close. I still have my heart set on a maximum of 10 hours of operation per day as sort of the maximum. So I tend to think 7 o'clock is a reasonable time. That's the time when most folks would be setting up or having dinner or possibly finishing up dinner. But I just think having it later than that is not reasonable for the neighborhood.
Thoughts?
I'll keep my motion till sunset.
I prefer the 7, but.
I prefer the 7 as well. I think he's got a point.
I just think
And
that,
if after 1 year, people come in and bitch, and we could change it.
Right.
It started off
I would
kind of cool.
We could always increase it, I agree.
I would support the
you
7.
can also always decrease it.
Could always do
Correct.
I also think that a lot of the people who are going to be doing this are people who are going to get out of work. And the nuclear family is not the same nuclear family where people sit down and have traditional dinner and do all of that stuff. It's people, especially like younger individuals coming into town, and any other folks that it's just that's a pretty active time of day in the warmer months.
Well, maybe they should stay home and have dinner with the kids.
You should change your your habits. That's all I gotta say.
Would 8 p.m. be reasonable? Something
I could
in
live-
between? Can we live with 8 p.m.?
I could compromise on 8.
8 p.m.? Okay.
I could compromise to
Hey,
8.
David,
And
at
again-
sunset, we're going to 8 p.m.
And Dave, it should say that, signs to be posted with the hours and signs to be posted with the racket recommendation as well.
I just have it's a general question. Do like the tennis courts and everything get locked up at a certain time?
No.
My understanding is
Okay.
that the
They
whole
just
park
close the
opens
door?
and shuts down as a unit.
But do they put locks on stuff like this? So
No.
it's going to just be a sign with a suggestion, go home at 8 o'clock.
Because it's a special purpose use.
I'm sorry.
So would they be locking it at 8 o'clock?
No, I,
was open
until like 10.
The ones with the
lights.
Probably are.
Oh, yeah, they're open till they're done.
With the lights?
All right, is everybody, you think
I
you've
think we're set.
got it all?
I do.
Everybody clear on?
Should I go over
what the-
one more time? or-
Sure, just very quickly.
So, motion to approve special permit application for the construction and operation of pickleball courts at Millwoods Park, 154 Prospect Street. Non-illuminated, that courts are non-illuminated, that the signs be posted recommending quieter equipment, and that semi-transparent after you post recommended. Oh, a semi-transparent and a no more than 3-side noise mitigation.
It's basically, it's the, whatever it is, as recommended by the consultant, sound mitigation material to be mounted
Not more than
on
3
not more than
sides.
3 sides of court fence enclosure, not on east side.
I just
And
did
be
just think of
sound
something. We did hear in that the construction be
Semi-transparent.
with as much as possible.
low
But
as
the
low as
wind
low.
loading, I'm sorry, someone had made they had expressed a concern about wind loading of the material.
I think it's going to be engineered.
Yeah, right.
So we don't have to
I
worry
think
about
the
it.
consultant takes.
Because the town
vendor.
engineer will take care of all that. We don't have to specify it. All we've got to say is we'd like to have no more than 3 sides, and it's got to be transparent to the extent possible, and it's got to achieve the 4 to 6, you know.
Transparent to the extent possible
That's it.
to achieve the recommendations of the report.
Okay.
We also got signs posted for hours of operation. I don't know if you pulled that up.
With signs posted for operations Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Exactly.
And that a report be provided summarizing the conditions of the operation no later than no later than October. Oh, here we go. It's here. October 1st of 2027. I knew I had it. Sound mitigation barriers covering not more than 3 sides with as much transparency to achieve the modeled projected sound levels in the CSA report dated December 12, 2025.
I think we got it. Right.
so?
I
We
think
need a
so.
second, right?
Second, we need.
Second.
Second.
Oh, yeah,
No?
second.
All right.
I think Peter.
The second?
I second it.
He's going to second it.
Chris?
No. Who's going to second it?
Yeah, I'll second it, yeah.
I was
Chris.
joking around.
Okay. So any questions? And I guess no questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Dave? No? And abstentions? Okay, the motion is approved 8-1.
With one extension or one?
No, one
nay?
opposition, one no. All right, so other business, we have minutes of December 2nd. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve minutes of December 2nd.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Chris, any comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
To the absence.
Who abstained? Tom? Anyone else abstain?
Peter.
Sorry?
Paul, sorry.
Abstain.
Sorry.
Yeah, Paul, okay. Actually, I guess we got 9 people already voting, so you don't need to abstain. How's that?
Yeah, there were words.
I just didn't want to
Still works.
approve something I
You
wasn't
don't have
at.
to stick out, okay. I forgot about that.
Collier were spelled wrong.
And then, did you have a correction?
2 typos.
2 typos, you
Yeah.
already gave them to Dave?
Keisha and Collier.
Yeah, the one place they call it Kesha.
All right, so just to reflect, there are 2 typos that will be corrected as part of the minutes. Number 6 on the agenda, there's a public comment opportunity for anything that is not an agenda item for tonight, so we can't talk about the application that we just voted on, but if there's any other issues that planning and zoning related issues that you'd like to speak to.
Peter Gardo, 60 Griswold Road. This item that was on your agenda was done through a special permit because it was new and different, and that's what was talked about by Mr. Elder at the October meeting. I had a conversation about this. He was good enough to call me on Thanksgiving evening at 6:30 at night. I guess he's getting his work done, which is good. Hopefully he has some free time. There's other work being done in the park that, once again, the town council didn't let us know about, neither did the park board. When this permit was brought up in September, there was all this equipment that had moved into the park the day after Labor Day, and your meeting was on the Wednesday of Labor Day, if I recall. And the Park and Rec director said it's a drainage job. Well, they tore down the existing ball field, and they put up what I would call a prison yard with maybe your 12-foot, your 10-foot walls and stuff. But what was also installed, and this happened, I noticed this at the week of Thanksgiving, is structural steel. I talked to a neighbor of mine, they're putting in something that was not there before. They're putting in batting cages. Batting cages, and I know because I live near the park, but there's a, and I moved into the park knowing there's a ball field there, okay? 32 years ago, we started looking at this house. And I was cool with that, okay? I played ball, you know. Didn't have any sons, I had a daughter that played soccer out there, it was fantastic. But batting cages are gonna make the same type of noise that was done here. So why wasn't a special permit required for something that was a drainage job? And I asked Mr. Elder that, because he's actually someone that picks up my calls and talks to me. I'd like to find out, with a written response, of why that was not a special permit, and what will be the sound mitigation for batting cages, which are even closer than the Stamp pickleball court. The town's moving stuff around without telling neighbors, but I'm sure all their friends know about it. The Little League, the Pickleball League, the Soccer League. I spoke at the town council meeting, their second meeting in September, and I said, you tell me when they're going to close the road because they're going to paint it, they're going to seal it. You tell me that the gas company is putting in a gas line and we're going to get a new sidewalk out of it. Tell me what's going on in the front of the house, but not in the rear. That's junk, all right? And whoever's in charge of determining if it's a special permit needs to be very careful about these things. I'm a stakeholder. At that same meeting in September, they talked about their strategic plan. And part of their strategic plan was, we're going to be really good neighbors, we're going to tell people stuff, this, that, and the other thing. Well, they've been failing for a long time, all right? And I know it's not in your purview, and maybe it's in Mr. Elder's purview, all right? But this batting cages is closer to the property. It's not what was there before. And getting dumped on by a government that doesn't give a damn, all right? I'm a frickin' neighbor. I pay taxes too. I've been on boards and commissions. I've sat on the town council, all right? I've done all this stuff. I understand what it means to be, a good neighbor and a good citizen. We got a problem here. I think all of you have done a fairly good job, and I thank you for that, all right? But Mr. Elder, I would like to have information about what we talked about the night before Thanksgiving, all right? And why that wasn't a special permit, and why these shenanigans are going on, all right? And I believe there was a lady that said we need a master plan. All this crap is being done without a master plan. We had a master plan that was approved in 2003, and I was on the town council when we approved it. And that had all stakeholders involved. This has had jack. We had one meeting. I sent an email in. They said thank you. this is crap, all right? And I thought the only bullies were in that are fiscally responsible were in Hartford and in Washington. Well, they're here too at 505 Celestine Highway, the way that they're acting. And Mr. Elder, you're a town employee, you work for the town manager, please provide my comment to that. Now, I know we're not supposed to talk about this, but your thing was flawed because you said 8 o'clock at night, the sun goes down before 8 o'clock. There's signs at the park that say it closes at sunset or dusk, all right? Sun goes down before 8 o'clock in the early spring, in the late fall. So I don't know how you fix that, but that needs to be fixed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comment? Correspondence? I don't think there is.
We do have correspondence. We did receive a request for a bond reduction for Reservoir Estates Phases 1, 2, and 3. The town engineer has been working with the applicant to confirm the items of reduction. So looking at how this has been handled in the past, I will provide that as communication in the next agenda packet. I'm not sure if it needs to be an item, but we could discuss that.
I think we typically vote on those.
Okay.
The town engineer's memo recommending the estimated amount.
So there's already been quite a bit of dialogue. I think that they're very close to the point of agreement on what those bond reduction amounts are. So I will have that. That will be an agenda item for the next meeting. And then I do expect sometime this winter that the developer is going to be making a request for the town to accept the road if things stay on track, which they currently are. So I am working with our corporation counsel to just make sure that we have everything lined up that we need to for a recommendation for acceptance. That will probably also happen this winter. And then the last thing is just I wanted to just bring everyone make everyone aware, we're going to start redacting the email addresses of the applicants on all the posting of the packets. There have been, and it's not just Weathersfield, but it's been happening all over where people are, and we've sent them to the police, but people are basically sending emails to applicants of many commissions saying that they owe money for the applicant after there's been a decision. And they use my name in some cases, and they just have a fake email address. But they're getting it all from the clerks, and so we're gonna just start redacting the email addresses of the applicants. So just be aware that's where you're gonna start seeing some.
Could we redact their home addresses too?
Well, I'm talking with everyone else in town, so we're consistent. We've talked to the email addresses will be everyone we've heard from. They've all been contacted through email, so we're gonna start there.
Okay.
But just be aware that's why we're redacting some things.
Any staff reports? Item 8?
No.
And then in terms of future
we have
applications?
We just have a big January. That's the plan of conservation and development probably won't happen until the first week in February, the first meeting in February.
Okay.
But we do have two items for January. Actually 3, because we have 1,000 Silas Dean coming back in, so.
We said they're coming back on the 21st, though,
Correct,
right? Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Weathersfield applications on this.
Opening on the 6th, and just, I think they'll both present this, but they have both chosen to go through with the Planning and Zoning Commission application before having HDC approvals for everything that's provided. They do realize they're doing that at their own risk, that they might have to return if there are any changes, but they've both chosen to proceed that way.
And hopefully both of those applicants have submitted all the required information to allow for a thorough town engineer and town staff review prior to it getting to a hearing.
Well, they've submitted the required documentation. Whether or not it's detailed enough is yet to be seen.
But at least having everything that's required, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Tom, second by Peter. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Till 8 o'clock.
Are you gonna leave me? Stay